And welcome back to The Pulse from Washington, D.C. We've taken the show on the road for good reason, because everything that happens in this town affects everybody in our good state. And that's the story we've been bringing you the last few days. It is cold in Washington. The lips take a little bit longer to warm up in order to talk. But joining us, two very special guests here on The Pulse. We're talking to, of course, Congresswoman Haley Stevens and also the mayor of Troy, Ethan Baker, a Republican. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
Hey, good to be here. You know, I'm honored to be representing Oakland County in the nation's capital. Sleeves rolled up for term 4. A lot of great things on the docket. Certainly a new administration coming in, but it's always a good day when we have our local leaders in town.
Well, it's great to see two local leaders who, by the way, come from different sides of the political aisle, but can stand together and talk about this country. Let's talk, Congresswoman, for a moment about this Trump presidency. Already we know executive orders about border security, very, very critical. We expect by Tuesday morning raids across this country. At least Tom Homan is saying that. Are you concerned about that?
Well, I want to make sure that people know their rights, and we have to have safety and security in this country. And certainly Mr. Trump ran on a very aggressive immigration agenda, something that we kind of saw during his first term, but now it seems like they really mean business. And so I just want to arm people with the facts. I'm certainly taking a lot of cues from our Attorney General, Dana Nessel. She's already being very strong in terms of some of the responses that she's giving, and I support her in that. I want to make sure that we're following the letter of the law, particularly around birthright citizenship that has been in our Constitution for over a century. And we also want to make sure, though, that we have fairness. And as a member of Congress, as a federal lawmaker, we've all known for a very long time that we have needed comprehensive immigration reform in this country. We've got a lot of H-1B visa holders in Southeast Michigan. We've got tremendous technology talent. We want to keep that in our state. We want to have fair, safe, legal pathways for immigration.
Let's talk for a moment about the violent criminals, because we know there are criminals that are living in our towns across America. This president has made it clear they're coming for them first. Are you concerned about how that will look relative to detaining and the court system and all of that?
Well, we want to be clear, because not every immigrant is a violent criminal, and it's far from that. And so there's a major distinction. And look, the priority around criminals and something that's hit us in Oakland County with Chilean gangs robbing people, you know, that's not just fear-mongering headlines. The leadership that we've seen from Sheriff Bouchard, that's been very important for us, and it's been scary for people. And we do need to take violence and crime seriously and stop it before it begins.
Mayor Ethan Baker, a Republican, of course, a nonpartisan role as mayor of Troy, but as a Republican, what are your hopes when you talk about that tough border talk and the president has signed all of that? What does that mean to you as the mayor of the city?
Well, it's really interesting. I actually just spent the last few days at the U.S. Conference of Mayors here with mayors from all over the country. We talked a lot about these issues, especially as it relates to the immigration raids, because that news kind of broke while we were together. I happened to be with Mayor Johnson this morning from Chicago and Mayor Gloria from San Diego yesterday.
What are they saying?
You know, they are, of course, worried about it, but they also know there's a lot of bluster that often comes out of this administration, and they're curious to see how it's going to play out. And now I'm hearing that Mr. Homan is pulling some of those things back as things broke a little bit early, so we'll see what really happens with that. But as a mayor of any city, I worry about it. There's a lot of immigrants in the city of Troy. The vast majority of them, of course, are here legally and have come on the visas that are filling our hospitals, you know, our great engineers in our city and throughout our region. But there's always a fear. And the Congresswoman brought up the good work that the Sheriff's Department's done and Sheriff Bouchard as it relates to these Chilean gangs. That's an issue facing the residents of Troy very, very, very much. You know, we worry about that safety. We're a very safe city naturally, but when you have outside forces, outside gangs coming into our city and putting our safety and security at risk, it makes us all very nervous.
We understand a CBS News poll just was released the other day that says that 60% of Americans that were polled, both Democrats and Republicans, are optimistic about this president and the work that he plans to do. What are your thoughts on that number, Congresswoman?
Well, look, you always see in the first 100 days of any new presidential administration a lot of hope, a lot of expectation, and certainly I remember coming in, 4 years ago in the new Biden administration, seeing again very positive, good polling, and we passed a lot of laws. We felt really good, and then it felt terrible when people were attacking us. And so, I'm using my mouthpiece effectively. I'm going to make sure I use my vote sincerely. That's one of the things that I've got in this dynamic, and it's an interesting makeup in the House of Representatives right now. I'm in the minority party, but by only 3 votes, and so the way in which I'm going to use my vote, I'm not going to just compromise at the expense of my values. If we can get some things done for paid leave, I'm working on manufacturing legislation, as I always am this time around critical minerals, dovetailing from the CHIPS legislation we've done. Hey, I'm willing to work.
Let's talk about the tariff talk that, of course, is now becoming the law of the land. We're talking about some serious threats against other countries. Mayor Ethan Baker, we're the automotive hub. Oakland County is Automation Alley, and here we are. What are your concerns about some of the tariff talk that you're hearing from this president?
I think it's terrifying in a lot of respects, but I understand exactly where he's coming from. He's doing what he does. He puts out a big statement, and then he does what he needs to do to walk it back a little bit. But I spent some time also this weekend with the ambassador from Mexico to the United States, who expressed some very deep concerns about it. He talked about all the reasons why it'd be a terrible idea to do that and why it potentially is against the free trade agreement that we have with the country. But he talked about all the value the Mexican economy brings to the United States economy, and he believes that once the president sees those facts and understands them, it'll change his tune pretty quickly. Same thing with Canada. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of talk going on between both nations about what it's going to mean, what it's going to do to our economy. Well, our economy is very diversified in the city of Troy, but obviously we depend greatly on Canadian imports and Mexican imports to build our cars, to do all the things that we need to keep the happy lives that we have. So
all those auto suppliers,
right.
They're importing, and we've got to make sure we've got a strong U.S. auto industry, and that's what I'm going to be fighting for, those workers and those small businesses.
Does it bring you any hope?
If I could say, the Congresswoman actually, she's so dialed in with our district back in Oakland County, and I love to see Haley here in our nation's capital, but I love to see her back in Troy and throughout Oakland County, because she does go around to all these manufacturing businesses. She goes around to everybody and really listens. She's a great listener. She talks a good talk too, but she listens really well to our small businesses and the other manufacturing businesses that really need representation here in Washington. So I do what I can at the city level. I'm happy to know the Congresswoman is doing it here.
We're going to do a final thought here. Optimistic about the next 4 years? I know it's not a yes or no, but for the most part, are you?
Well, my teeth are clenching, maybe not just because it's cold, Roop, but I will tell the viewers and my constituents this, that you will always have a listener in chief in me. You will always have an advocate in me. People's activism really matters, and the work that we're going to do together will be heard.
Mayor Ethan Baker, are you optimistic about the next 4 years?
I think we have to be. If we're not optimistic, we're all going to be really depressed and unhappy, and I think we'll do better work coming together if we can maintain some of that optimism. It's easier said than done some days, but of course I'm optimistic. It's America. It's the best country in the world.
We love our country.
We have a great state, great county, great city. I mean, we're proud.
I heard an aide just moments ago for a congresswoman say this. He says, when Donald Trump does well, America does well, and that's something that I'm hearing echoed over here. We thank you, Congresswoman Stevens, Mayor Ethan Baker. Good to see you both. And we'll be back with more of our coverage on the Pulse here from D.C.